state's capital city. How do you see sport helping to bring your community together?
Sport is intrinsic to the culture of Salt Lake City and even the state of Utah. So many of our Salt Lakers live there because they came to ski for 6 months, and 25 years later, they're still there. There's something about the love of sports and the love of community that has been an intrinsic part of Salt Lake City for decades and was underscored by hosting the 2002 games. We've evolved from that time. We're more diverse, we're even more welcoming than we were in 2002, and we're ready to celebrate in a new way in 2034.
Danny Arovich, a Paralympic athlete, both summer and winter. 22 years ago, Salt Lake City became the first organizing committee to manage both the Olympics and the Paralympics. You found your opportunity in Utah. How has Paralympic sport really resonated across the state?
I think that in Utah, there's opportunities for Paralympic athletes like I haven't seen anywhere else in the United States. There's just such a love for the games and for the sports at large, and we really have some incredible organizations located throughout Utah that focus on getting people with disabilities into sport, and I know those will just continue to grow as we look towards 2034, and I think Salt Lake will become really a games that changes the way we view the Paralympics ultimately.
Governor Spencer Cox, one of the elements of the bid that was very notable as we went along was the strong public support, strong support of elected officials. What is it in the state that has really helped to bring that kind of unity to the bid?
Yeah, I think we're pretty fortunate to have 80% of the citizens of Utah that support the games, according to recent polling, and 100% of the political leaders in the state at the local, county, state level, Republicans and Democrats together, who support the games. I think there's a couple reasons for that. The first is that we had such a successful games in 2002. As we welcomed the world there, the way we unified around a tragic event, 9/11, that had happened just months before the games, that brought people together. We have a strong sense of volunteerism in Utah. We lead the United States in charitable giving and service, and so that ethos, we had over 60,000 people volunteer to help in the Olympics in 2002, and that memory just resonates with people, and they want to bring it back. They say that nostalgia sells. If you look at Hollywood and movies and TV, there's so much nostalgia. Well, there's a lot of nostalgia for the games and what it meant to Utah. By the time 2034 rolls around in Utah, we estimate that more than half of the people living in Utah in 2034 will have had no experience with the 2002 games. They were either too young, not born yet, or have moved into the state since then. And so there's a real desire that they get the same opportunity that those of us that lived in the state in 2002 had.
Catherine Rainey Norman, you served for the last 3 years as the board chair. You have a great Olympic experience. You've also seen the culture of the state change and sport becoming an integral part. How has that really helped this bid, and how does it permeate across the state?
I think it's been a true pillar of our bid, is making sure that we incorporate in the values of sport, how we have connected our communities and our youth and the opportunities that we've been able to provide them, and being able to have kids from all backgrounds and all ranges of ability have access is so critical when you think about the opportunity that it affords them, and incorporating in the values of the Olympic and Paralympic movement, and helping them to propel. You know, I say we're not just trying to create athletes or champions, right? We're using these games as an opportunity to create the next generation of leaders. And that's what we're trying to do through this effort, and I hope will be a metric of a success for us in 2034.
Sarah Hirschland, in your tenure as the CEO of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, you've seen now 2 Olympics come to America, Olympic and Paralympic Games, LA in 28 and now Salt Lake City, Utah in 2034. 2034. What will this mean to sport across America to have two games almost back to back, 6 years apart?
I think the next decade is the most important decade in United States sports history. We have an opportunity to showcase an incredible diversity, not only of sport, but of athletes, in a way that will inspire communities and individuals alike across our country. And we haven't had that opportunity in more than 30 years. And as we heard the governor reference, there are a lot of individuals who aren't familiar with this movement and who haven't experienced a games the way many did in LA in '84 or in Salt Lake in 2002 or in Atlanta in '96. And so, our job is to use this next decade to reintroduce and introduce the Olympic and Paralympic Games to the American citizens. And we've got a decade to do that in new and exciting ways. It's an awesome opportunity.
Okay, we'll go to questions from the group. We have one in the middle there.
Thank you very much. I'm Brian Mann with National Public Radio, and I'm sorry to start off on this topic. It's a great day for Salt Lake City, but you must know that this WADA issue is going to be a source of questions. There are a lot of U.S. athletes who are deeply concerned, a lot of U.S. lawmakers deeply concerned about WADA's handling of the China doping case. This was thrust into not only your laps, but also into the contract, apparently, that allows these games to go to Salt Lake City. And I would like to know whether you're comfortable with where you've been forced to land, agreeing to WADA's authority at a time when a lot of questions have been raised about their handling of this case.
Fraser, we'll start with you.
Yeah, and then we'll turn it to Sarah. So we've been on this wonderful journey, as I said, for 22 years. And out of the blue, something new comes in, which was completely unexpected, was not directly our problem, but it's part of our country's problem. And as we look at this issue, I'm very sympathetic to how the international sport federations feel, because they're worried, can I come to the U.S. safely? And we need to make sure that everybody feels safe coming and welcome. So we have issues. They're not directly our issues, but they're indirectly our issues. And so we view this as an opportunity to work through the leadership of the USOPC to play a part in figuring out a way to bring everybody together to work through this problem. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah Hirschland.
I'm going to reiterate and build, Fraser, on what you said. This is about bringing organizations together in support of clean sport. And there is nothing in the conversations we've had over the last 2 weeks or in the language in the agreement that we readily and happily signed that prevents our ability to be as strong and forceful on clean sport as we have professed for many, many years. And we will continue to do that. In fact, I think this is an opportunity for us to bring organizations together to improve the entire anti-doping ecosystem in collaboration and unity with one another. And that's our hope, and certainly that's what we think is coming.
Yes.
Hi, Tariq Panja from the New York Times. Sorry to labour on this point, but it was a very significant day for the IOC with this amendment. I just want to ask, first of all, Spencer, you said you will do everything you can to alleviate the concerns of the IOC, but what does that mean in practice? In the sense that you've got the FBI has got an open investigation into these cases and how they were handled. You've got the Senate committee that had sent invitations to people to speak, including the WADA president, which he rejected. So my question is, in terms of clean sport, the US, with these investigations, appears to be trying to clean up sport. Mm-hmm. The IOC, member after member, I think there were 6, spoke up against what America is doing. So do you want to take the opportunity to praise what the US is doing in trying to clean up sport? Sarah, we were hoping Gene Sykes was going to be here because he was going to be here. I noticed that President Bach in the midst of all of the US anti-doping conversation there. He wanted to point out that Gene Sykes is hoping to become an IOC member at the same time. Did that appear as a threat in any way to Gene Sykes' candidature for the IOC? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Look, the good news in all of this, and I go back to what Fraser said about the opportunity that Utah has to try to bring people together to solve an issue, is that both sides of this issue want the same thing. And so, yes, again, I praise U.S. leadership for wanting to clean up sport. And I also praise IOC and WADA leadership for wanting to clean up sport. They want the same things. And that's critical. I also praise WADA and the IOC for immediately instigating an independent investigation, which I think is really important to establishing trust in any organization, to have outside people come in and look to make a determination if the right policies and procedures were followed and if there was any bias in the decisions. And so what our opportunity now is, we get to bring those two groups together. We'll work very closely with the Department of Justice. We'll work with the Senate. We'll work with the Biden administration and whatever the next administration is, so that we can get a comfort level in what we're going to do to work together, because the United States cannot clean up sport by itself. That's impossible. And conversely, WADA can't clean up sport by itself without countries that are willing to participate and work together. And so that's what we're going to do. We've had difficulties in the past, and I'm sure we'll have difficulties in the future, but we will get through this. I'm confident that we will get through this.
And I'll comment on your question. Gene is likely in the session as we speak, as they're working to elect a number of new members. Here's what I would say. I'm incredibly grateful. Gene, as you know, is the chair of our board and the president of our organization, and gives his time incredibly generously, and is now willing to step up and do the same at the international level. This is a service role, and he will play an important role in the unification and the collaboration that we just heard Governor Cox talk about. This is a movement that requires, more than 200 countries and a number of other sort of global organizations to work together to make it go. And Gene is incredibly grateful, or incredibly generous with his time. I'm grateful to him for that, for being willing to serve as an IOC member, which is a significant commitment and an opportunity and an obligation to represent the United States in the global movement.
In the front.
Henry Bushnell from Yahoo Sports. Just to follow up on this, I guess two questions. One, I think Fraser, you mentioned that this issue came up out of the blue. When and how was this possibility of an amendment to the host city contract first brought up to you guys? And B, is the amendment only what John Coates read this morning? That's it.
Yes. So this issue obviously surfaced earlier this year in the press and the media, but it really became more of a focus, and we were made aware of it. I believe the date was July 12th. And so we went to work very closely with Sarah and Gene to be able to navigate this and to work together with our friends at the IOC. And we understood the concern. And as a result, we said, yes, we can provide assurances by letters, which we did. But then we also need another assurance in the Olympic host contract. And the entire amendment was what John Coates talked about. And it's in the special section regarding the few instances of termination, which is not abiding by anti-doping rules and things like that. And so it was just an added clause in there that we're very comfortable with. By the IOC. And so we knew something had to be done to address this, to bring comfort to IOC members. So I thought it was a very wise move to be able to do that, because we feel very comfortable with that language, and we support it 100%.
Rachel?
Rachel Axon with Sports Business Journal. To follow up on that, in those discussions, was it clear that you could still get the games without that part of the contract? Was there any pushback, I guess, on your hand then? Forcing the IOC's hand to pick a viable host or not. And when you say you gave them assurances, what did that include beyond any of the people who were involved here today?
Yes. So the nice thing is that came out of this is whenever you're faced with a challenge, you collaborate. And so we got on Zoom calls and phone calls with our friends at the USOPC, the IOC, and we say, okay, we need to address this valid concern. So we did that. And we all came together, and the assurances that we provided were basically letters that we said the essence of the letter is that we recognize WADA as the ultimate global authority for anti-doping in sport, Olympic sports, and that we also absolutely 100% support the World Anti-Doping Code. And so those are the two things that are naturally part of any host contract anyway, but we reaffirmed those in a very strong way.
Actually, yeah, go ahead. And then Rob.
Ed Hula from Hula Sports Communication. Fraser Bullock, you're one of the, I think the only person who's gotten to lead successive Olympic Games, lead an Olympic Games and then bid and win an Olympic Games. Compared to the experience in 2002, what would you do differently now from 2002 to 2034?
Well, Ed, it's good to see you again. It brings back many, many wonderful memories, so thanks for being here. And 2002 was just magical. And Mid and I came in 3 years before the Games, and it was tough. But day by day, we worked through the issues, and it became magical. And when I look at what we did in 2002, and back then it was just like, can we make everything work? Because you don't know, you've never done it before. And it did work. It worked really, really well. This time around, we know we can make everything work. And so we're saying, what can we do more? And that's why when we, in our presentation, talked about we can do good with the Games, because it's such an influence to bring the world together, and we want to leverage that as a platform. And it's things like unity at the local level, national level, and international level. So what are we going to do differently? We're going to have a broader vision of what's possible. It's not just about operating the Games. It is about what good we can do on a broad basis.
Rob? Yes.
Rob Livingstone, GamesBiz.com. Fraser, just to clarify, has the host city or the host contract been signed? And when did it get signed? Was it before or after the election? Who signed it? And has the IOC countersigned?
Okay. So, in today's electronic world, when you do legal agreements, lots of times you pre-sign them that become effective upon a vote. And this has been signed by the USOPC, by our good Governor Cox, and it becomes effective upon election. So we are in good shape there.
And it's countersigned?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Brian Pinelli with Team USA. Congratulations, guys. Well done. For Fraser and also Governor Cox, we've been saying that this Utah bid, these Utah venues, this plan, this project would be ready to go tomorrow if necessary. Obviously, a fantastic quality of this bid. It's 10 years away. We have 80% public support. It would seem that you can, go home and relax a little bit. Sarah began to address, we have 10 years and we can, do this, X, Y, and Z. I mean, what about for you guys? It's maybe a simple and basic question, but what's next? You have 10 years. So, unlike some previous winter games, it doesn't seem like there's as much pressure on to get ready for the game. So I guess the question is, how do you use that to your advantage, and what will you do over the next year or two besides obviously continuing World Cup events and using the venues?
Yeah, I'll give a brief answer, then we'll have Governor Cox and then Mayor Mendenhall and Kat, because we all come together in terms of, yes, if it were just preparing the venues and the transportation plan, we've got a lot of that done already. I mean, we are so far ahead. But we have, early on I thought, man, I really want the 2030 games because I want them now. But I'm so grateful. And Sarah gave me great coaching along here, helped us pivot towards 2034. And when I look at that, I see this is a marvelous opportunity because it's not just hosting the games. It's the power of the games to change our communities. And we have 10 years to do that. And whether it's our kids or whether it's unity in our community, we have many vehicles that we'll focus on during this runway. And then 4 years out, we'll start gearing up for the operational aspect. Governor.
Yeah, I would just add this. In every games that's been awarded in modern times, the question has been, what do we have to do to pull these games off? This is the first time, I believe, that a city doesn't have to answer that question, because what we have to do is already done. We get to ask, what do we want to do, instead of what do we have to do over the next 10 years? And this is a question I've put to all of our local officials. I've asked every mayor in Utah. There are 249, I think now, cities and towns in Utah. I said, what do you want your city and town to look like 10 years from now when the world comes to Utah? Even if you have nothing to do with an Olympic event, right? What are you going to do? And it gives us an opportunity to dream. We're working with our legislature. What do we want to do with transportation? What do we want to do with housing in our state? Those are the things that we get to work on that will bless the lives of the people of Utah, not just for the Olympics, but for generations to come. And that's where our mind is right now. And we had to get to this point, though, before I can truly answer that question, but those are the conversations that are happening now. Mayor?
I'll just say that we have the very fortunate circumstance of being the fastest growing state in the nation with the youngest population in the nation. Salt Lake City is growing anyway. We're doubling our downtown population as we speak. And the way that we grow is going to benefit generations to come. And it's a perfect complement to hosting the games in 2034. So you're going to see a lot of changes, but you're going to see changes that we should be doing anyway, and we hope either to have more resources to be able to do them through the economic attraction that these games will be for us, but it's a surety that you can count on. Salt Lake City is not going to look the same in 10 years, but it may look similar to how it would should we not be hosting the games.
Brian, with regards to sort of what's next, and as we look at this, I think Danny and I can both sort of share 10 years goes by really quickly. It's going to go by quickly, especially as athletes. We live our lives in 4 years, quads and sections. But, you know, I think for us, as you're hearing over and over, and I appreciate Governor Cox's words here of saying, you know, what do we want to do? What do we want to see our impact be? And that's been part of the joy of this bid, quite honestly, is going out and meeting with our community members and just listening to them, understanding what they're hoping to see in a future games. Because as Mayor Mendenhall alluded to, we are so different than we were in 2002. We are an incredibly vibrant community, and that's going to continue to change into 2034. So as Fraser and I are doing our work, we're out meeting with stakeholders, understanding their long-term goals and initiatives, meeting with our community-based partners, our youth sport organizations, trying to understand how can we get more kids involved in sport, more kids healthy and active and moving, so that we can, in 2034, look back and see what our impact was and how we had that positive effect on our community members. And so the time's going to go by quickly, for sure. But it's going to be really exciting.
Thank you. You're going to go back, Christine. Then we'll come back to the front.
Thank you, Tom. Christine Brennan, USA Today. Congratulations. The 2002 games were great, and some of us just hope to be alive and see those games in 2034. I just want to go back and just be clear on one thing. Do all of you, Salt Lake City and Sarah, do all of you stand with USADA and Travis Tigert in his quest, his concern, and his battle, frankly, with WADA? Do you stand with USADA and Travis Tigert? Thank you.
I'll take that, and I'll say that it's important to recognize that the role USADA plays and the role WADA plays are different. One is a global organization that writes and manages a code that all of us have the opportunity to weigh in on as they reform that code. We're signatories of WADA, including USADA, as you know. So it isn't one organization against another. It is two organizations who both want the same thing, that are working toward the same thing, and may not always agree on the path to get there. And our job is to support both in that journey and to help bring them together to ensure that, in fact, we are collectively galvanizing the movement, right? Our organization, the athlete community, all the national governing bodies, the organizing committees, of which we now have two, to work toward ensuring that we help strengthen WADA in its role and USADA in its role and other national anti-doping organizations around the world. It takes all of us to make that happen.
Yes, go ahead.
This one's for Governor Cox, maybe Frazier, maybe Sarah too. Governor, in the after party, you said Utah needed the Olympic Games in 2002, but now the Olympics needs Utah. Could you elaborate on that at all?
Sure, yeah. Because as I mentioned before, you know, when we were, and as Fraser mentioned, in 2002, we had no idea what we were doing, but we did it anyway. Hang on, we figured it out along the way, and that's my point. You know, it's the thing is, we kept asking ourselves in 2002, and I've talked to many people who were involved, and they said we thought we could do it, we believed we could do it, but we weren't sure until we did it, and now this is our opportunity to give back to the movement. We were in 2002, we were takers. We were learning from others. The Olympic and Paralympic movement lifted Utah and put us on a pedestal, a place where we had never been before. Now we're on that pedestal. How can we lift and give back to the Olympic movement? That's what I mean by the Olympics needs Utah. This is our chance to give everything that we've learned and all the goodness that came to us because of that, and to turn around and give it back. And I think you're seeing that in some of the things that we're going to do differently. We're very proud of the idea of having a family village. That's a very Utah-centric idea. We're known in the United States as the family state. We care deeply about families, and so that's something we're going to take from Utah and give back to the Olympic community. I think you'll see more of that service ethos that is so important. We told the Olympic and Paralympic movement in 2002 that we would try to get 20,000 volunteers. They said that's impossible. You can't get 20,000 volunteers. They were right. We got 60,000 volunteers, and that's who we are. And I think I also just want to mention this. We are deeply divided in the United States of America. This is true, I think, in many nations in the world. There's so much polarization, political polarization that is happening. We're a little different in Utah. We care deeply about our neighbors. We want people to feel welcome there, and we want to overcome those divides that are happening. We believe in bridge building, and there is no entity on earth that is better at bringing diverse groups of people together than the Olympic and Paralympic movements. By very definition, there is nothing on earth that brings that many people together for a common cause, and so we think it's the perfect combination: the Utah way and the Olympic and Paralympic way joined together.
Fraser, anything to add?
Governor said it perfectly.
Beautiful. Okay, down front.
Hi, thank you very much, Tom. Graham Dunbar from Associated Press. Governor Cox, first of all, congratulations, maybe a word not used very much here, but going back to this main subject, what you had to go through on the stage today, was that just rough and tumble of normal politics, or did that surprise you a bit as maybe crossing a line of what you'd expected from sports politics? And did, the severity of what we saw, because I think there's veteran Olympics watchers around here were really quite shocked at what it all went through. And I'm sure you could find a lawyer that would say there was elements of obstruction of justice in there. Is it really because of the LA Olympics is coming up? And when sports federations say that we want to be safe coming to the US, is it because they can imagine if the scope of the Rodchenkov Act is not controlled sooner, that there's going to be a slew of police raids in California or whatever in the summer of 2028? Is that an element of it?
Well, I can't speak. You'll have to ask the IOC members about their reasoning behind why they said what they said or feel what they said. So I don't think it's appropriate for any of us to address their motivations or their feelings. But what I can tell you is it wasn't a surprise to us, because we've been involved in this, as Fraser mentioned. We've been having these conversations. We knew it was top of mind for them, and so we wanted the opportunity to address those concerns directly. And I think it was important. I'm certain we have an Olympics going on right now. We have not just Olympic events, but we have other sporting events that are happening in the United States all the time. We have 50 international events happening every year in the state of Utah. And so getting doping under control, making sure we're all on the same page is top of mind for everyone. I'm not a veteran Olympic watcher, so I don't have the history and the background that you would have, but I am an attorney, and a recovering attorney, as I like to say, and a politician. I am saddened at the politicization of everything that we see. Sports, for sure, entertainment. It seems like everybody's looking for an excuse to be angry. We're addicted to outrage in this world. Social media, we attack each other. Sports and entertainment, those types of things used to be a refuge from politics, and I hope they can become a refuge again, for sure. And we're committed to making that happen.
Peggy?
Hey, Fraser, Peggy Shin down here with TeamUSA.com. Question about your presentation. You got choked up at one point during the presentation. I was wondering if you could talk about your emotion that led to that, and then how you felt when Thomas Bach held up the sign that said Salt Lake 2034.
Well, back in 1999, I was just a regular business guy. And then I got pulled into the Olympic and Paralympic movement. And wow, it changed me. And I absolutely vividly recall that moment, being on the top of Olympic Stadium and thinking, there's nothing like the games. And I didn't want that to end, really, as I said. And so I got pretty choked up, because I thought about that moment and just said, oh my gosh, now we have the opportunity to do it again, which is just so magical for me and for all the state of Utah and for my grandkids. You saw one of them. I have 11 grandchildren. And you saw one of them, little Nate there. No easy way down, which I just love that, because many times in life we're at the top of a hill and we want to get to the bottom and work through a crisis, and sometimes there's no easy way down, but you just have to go. And so, yes, it did choke me up, because I was thinking about the games, I was thinking about my grandchildren, and I was just thinking, this is great for Utah. Well, I would say I've always utilized the words humble and hopeful. And at that moment, I felt relief and incredible joy for the people of Utah.
Okay, just a couple more questions. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Wakako Yuki from the Yomiuri Shimbun, a Japanese newspaper. 2 questions to Fraser. Thank you very much for your sharing your personal note. It was wonderful. And first one, unfortunately, would concern with the previous amendments of the contracts. I've been, my humble way, covering the Olympic movement for, I think, 30 years, literally less than Ed, perhaps. But I've never heard this happening just prior to the signing of the contract or soon after, shortly after the presentation from the bed. What was your initial reaction when you heard out of blue, you say, and indeed this is not exactly directly concern your bid itself? What was your first take, as well as how do you try to fathom that it is a necessity for Salt Lake City? And second part is what we see here in today is that the IOC is talking about digital AI, then Paris 24 regarding sustainability, things so forth. Yes, I do share your sentiment. Back in 2002, I was there too. But obviously the world is changing. What is the thing that you would foresee for Salt Lake City, next Salt Lake City Games to be championed with in that society, in that sense?
So with the first one, we knew this was an issue. We knew it was going to come up, so we were prepared for that. And we sympathize tremendously with those who are concerned. And so we understood that. It was, for us, a little challenging because we just made an emotional appeal, a presentation, and we would have loved just to have a vote right then, because then it's a crescendo and you finish with a vote. But we understood the necessity to do this because we need to have everybody feel welcome and safe. That's our theme, and that's what Sarah and her team, and we'll partner with her. Well, she's the USOPC. She and Jean will be working on this and leading this. We will be supporting them in that effort. So, yes, we knew it was coming, a little disappointing, but we understood why.
May I
Yes.
say something you can't say about yourself
Yeah.
in this situation? And as Ed mentioned, Fraser is unique, perhaps the world over. He is world-renowned for being an Olympic expert. He's been a part of so many games. And I would characterize our approach with Fraser's leadership to these questions before they happened as welcoming. He is a known leader. He has relationships of trust because he's earned them in this community. And I think, in a way, the depth of the questioning, which was really surrounded by a great deal of support, was a reflection of Fraser's leadership, of Salt Lake City, Utah ambition, and his great history with the games. So in some ways, I think that the questioning may have been different, of a different committee, but the depth of relationship allowed that to happen in a different way.
Okay, we just have a minute left. Go ahead.
CMG China, and the first question is, would you please use 3 words to describe the Winter Olympics 10 years later? Because that lady said 10 years is coming, is very fast, but actually, 10 years ago, we don't know ChatGPT. We don't know the intelligence here. 10 years is very, very far, in my opinion, right? So would you please describe the 2034 Winter Olympics, use 3 words.
And Paralympics.
Yes, okay. Sorry. And the second question is, I see, congratulations to Salt Lake City. And what do you worrying about now? And for example, somebody was worrying that 10 years later, you see the temperature, maybe there's no snow. How can we ski? And maybe somebody, you mentioned about you want to try more young generation, but you know the Z generation, they like mobile phone, they don't like sports. Do you worry about this? Thank you.
Yes, so I'll answer the second question first, and I'm going to have Kat join on that. That's the problem. The kids are on their mobile phones too much. We need to get them off. And what better way to do that than to engage in sport? And maybe, Danny, you can add on to this too, which is to get them engaged in sport, which teaches the wonderful values of discipline, teamwork, getting to know new people. That's one of our big opportunities that we want to talk about. And so our effort, one of the big efforts we have over the next 10 years, is to work with our youth. And Kat is extraordinary at leading that effort. She's so inspirational. So Kat and then Danny.
Well, I think to go to your question about the 3 words, right? It's, I don't know if I can do 3. I might do 4. Vibrant, hope, welcoming, and inclusive in my minds, right? Making sure when I think about sport and kids, I think about kids of all abilities. And I've been so fortunate to work with many Paralympic organizations and to work with individuals that they've never had access before, right? And so to be a part of those organizations and to help to change that narrative and to help provide them the opportunities just to simply participate is huge. And so, you know, our world is changing, right? You highlighted ChatGPT. I go back to when I went to my first Olympics, it was AOL, right? That's what we were doing back then, right? And by the time I retired, there was Facebook and Twitter and all of that sort of stuff, completely dynamic changes. And that's on us. Our world is going to change quickly, right? And these 10 years are going to go quickly. And for us to stay abreast of what's happening and how our community, how our youth, how our fans want to be engaged, how we want them to participate in sport, these things are all moving really quickly. And so the 10 years are going to go by fast. And for us, again, it's an opportunity for us to bring more people along on this journey, have more people a part of the Olympic and Paralympic experience, have more kids participating in sport. That's the next 10 years for us. That's the impact that we're looking for in 2034. So I'll put it over to Danny as well.
I was just going to say, I just hope that AI hasn't destroyed the planet in 10 years. That's what I'm hopeful for. Danny.
I don't know if I could sum it up in 3 words, but I think what's unique about our bid is we're going to prioritize people from all different backgrounds. And when I first got started working on the bid before COVID, I was on a diversity panel, and I came at it thinking about disability and para, because that's the opportunity and the community I feel like needs the most representation. But it was so interesting to learn and have other community thought leaders from around Utah come together and, like, we think about winter sport. How expensive is it to go skiing? Like, these sports, I feel like sometimes compared to our summer counterparts, are very challenging to get into because of the costs. So when we think about parents that are working and don't have the capacity to drive their child to a ski practice or be able to afford a season pass somewhere or get ice time, like, that is something I think our bid is going to focus on, is really trying to grow all different areas of sport to ensure everyone has opportunity, whether it's financial status, race, and disability, and so on. And so I think we're going to really highlight all that. And I hope by 2034, personally, you never say the word Olympic without following it with Paralympic.
I'm just going to add, you asked the words, and Kat did a beautiful job. I'm going to pen 2 to her comments. One is elevate, which is our visionary word, and you saw the things that we're trying to elevate. But the other one to me that's overarching is unity. The games have the opportunity to unify unlike anything else. And so we want to use that as a platform to take our divided world and see if we can do better.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here today. Look forward to seeing you in 2034. Thank you.
Photo. Okay. Yeah, come up front. Okay.